Hello and welcome to the Newstalgia podcast. This is episode 1, all about the Sesame Street General Store. This is a companion piece to our YouTube video that you can find on our channel called Viewist. We're going more in depth than we did in the video, talking all about the Sesame Street General Store. My name is Wesley, and right across from me is
Cody.
And I'll just start by, I guess, talking about our experiences with Sesame Street. I think I might have more memorable experiences with it than you, possibly.
I don't remember. I don't really remember ever watching it. I'm sure I watched it when I was, like a toddler, like when most people just pop their kids down in front of the TV for Sesame Street. I don't really remember watching it, to be honest. But you can't get away from Sesame Street. So, I mean, I'm pretty familiar with it. But for you, this was much more of a personal episode, which, that's how this goes, I guess.
Yeah, we're each kind of like picking our own topics that we want to really focus on. And I chose this as my first one because this is kind of, when we had this idea, it was the first thing that came to mind for me because
did you get the idea because you remembered having the shirt? Was that what it was? Because
no, I if you see the video, I have a shirt that my mom had at the time, but I didn't even realize that was a Sesame Street General Store shirt until we were making the video, and then I was like, wait, that's from the same like era. Let me check, and sure enough, on the tag it says Sesame Street General Store. But no, I just like randomly remembered this because I've been going to the same mall since I was a kid. Like my dad worked at Rich's and we were in there all the time. So there was a Sesame Street General Store there. And I'm going to just start calling it Sesame Street Store. I can't keep saying general.
It's way too long. It's ridiculous. That's why it failed.
But yeah, I was probably in there all the time as a kid because my dad worked at Rich's. And so me and my mom would go over there like waiting for him to get off work and just like hanging out, and that's like the one store from that era that I remember going to all the time. And I know they have a Disney store there. I don't know when that one opened at that mall, but of course everyone's more familiar with the Disney store.
Yeah, that Disney store's still there in the same spot that it's been in for like 25 years or something.
That's so crazy to me that Disney is like the first one who did like the character-based
basically
stores.
The only one left.
Yeah, they literally are the only one left. I feel like there's
Power of the mouse, baby.
Yeah, it's like now it's bigger than ever. Basically, you go in there and there's like Marvel and
insane.
shit.
It's insane now. It's a totally different. Like I remember going to the Disney store when I was a kid, so I have a different mall experience than you when I was a kid. So you have always lived within like 10 minutes of a mall. When I grew up and I was around the age when the stores were open, I lived out in the boonies, and the closest mall was literally 45 minutes to an hour away.
Oof.
So when I got to go to the mall, it was like a special experience, and I was excited. But the mall that we would go to didn't have a Sesame Street store, so I never went to one. I didn't even know it was a thing until you mentioned it.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't, but actually, I've been interviewing some people for another episode of Newstalgia, and they're all based in California, and a few of them have been like, "Oh, what other topics have you been doing?" And I told them about this, and everyone I've mentioned it to, it was only like 2 or 3 people, but they were all like, "Oh yeah, I remember the Sesame Street store." And I was like, "Oh shit, maybe it was." I don't know if it was a bigger deal in California.
Well, that's definitely where they had their most stores, from what we could gather, because we still don't really know exactly how many stores they had or exactly where every single store was. But
yeah, there was like
most were in California.
50. There might have been more than that after a while. At one point, there was 50.
We should talk a little bit about our research process for this one, because I think this one was a lot different than what we've done after this.
This one is kind of wild because there's not anything about it online, really. Not a lot of stuff online that's like you got to dig deeper than just like a quick Google search. But what's weird about that is that it's like such a big brand. It's such a big IP that you would think there would be like a lot of stuff about it, like easily accessible.
Let's be honest, it failed, so they really don't want people thinking too much about it, I guess.
I guess so.
I mean, it's not like you can hide stuff on the internet either, but at the same time, the last store closed in '98, right?
Yeah.
So
and it was before like cell phones were in everybody's pocket, so there's not that many photos of it. That's why you see in the video it's almost exclusively newspaper articles.
And the internet wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now, so it was just a different era. But the reason I wanted to talk about the research processes because we did this so differently. So we were basically just like grasping in the dark because we had no idea. This was the first episode. This was the first day we had, and we basically worked on it together. And some of the more episodes we've been working on more recently, we've basically been doing it on our own.
Research-wise, for sure.
But this one, we really did work together. And God, how many people did we message trying to get information about this?
Oh, yeah. I completely forgot because the research process was like a while ago now, but I was messaging anybody that I could find on Facebook that ever worked at one of these stores.
We messaged people on LinkedIn, Twitter. Where else do we message people? We sent people emails.
I heard back from one person.
Yeah.
And
it's just one of those things like we thought that was going to be the best way. And I guess now we know that relying on people for information is just, especially something that took place literally 20 years ago.
Something like this, yeah, because I was literally messaging a guy who's like a doctor now, and he worked there when he was like probably a teenager.
Yeah.
And he's the one who told me about the Madeline Kahn video that they would show in the store. I guess they had like a bunch of like Sesame Street VHSs, like old school stuff, and they'd let them play whatever they want, and he would play that one all the time. But yeah, he said him and all his friends all wanted to work at the Disney store in the same mall, but they got jobs at Sesame Street instead. But he basically just said like, oh, it was cool, it was fun. Like, it wasn't any more than that, really. And I'm sure he was just kind of like, why is this guy messaging me about this job I had when I was a kid? But he's like a successful doctor now, so.
Then you had some experience with people like messaging you back and then completely blowing you off once you tried to get more information from them too. There was a couple people that did that.
There was a couple like that. When I went on Twitter, I found like one person had mentioned the store and saying that they used to work there, and I was like, hello, hit me up. And she never did.
She did. I thought she messaged you back once and then just disappeared.
Somebody like that did. I don't know. The one, our white whale that we weren't able to get was Gene Platten, who you see a lot of him in the video, and
he's an old guy now. But
yeah, he was kind of old then.
But we found him on like every social media platform possible.
We found him on Facebook. We found him on LinkedIn,
Twitter.
Oh yeah, he did have a Twitter.
He did have a Twitter, but I mean, we
didn't even say something. It said something Sesame Street related on his Twitter.
His Twitter handle was Big Bird Elmo, I think.
That's so weird, but yeah, we like couldn't get a hold of him. I don't know if I assume he's still alive. But
we didn't find. I mean, this is gonna sound really morbid, but we didn't find any obituaries for him, so I assume he still is.
If he's out there, if anybody knows him, hit us up, because
we'd still love to talk to him.
I would still really love to talk to him because he seems like such a character. He seems like a cool guy.
Yeah.
And just from that one quote that we use in the video where he talks about how Sesame Street, the CTW, was like looking over his shoulder the whole time, like, oh, don't screw up our brand, don't mess with our characters, and they had to like approve everything, and he said he couldn't even get up in the morning without them approving it. It just makes me think he's probably a real like funny guy.
Maybe, but it's just so strange how everybody kind of like dropped off the face of the earth who was ever related to it. I mean, I get it. He's older now, so I'm sure he's been retired for a long time.
Was this his last thing that he ever did? Did we find that out?
I don't think so. I think he did a little bit after, but I mean.
Before this, he was doing like, what was it? Some store.
It was a store that's kind of like Cook's Warehouse.
That's what I was gonna say. It was like kitchen stuff, right?
Yeah, and I can't remember the name of the store. We have articles for it buried somewhere deep in our research folder. But he was like the vice president of marketing. Gene Platten was like a career marketing guy.
Yeah.
And then he did something in the toy industry. It was another toy store.
It was like a learning-based toy store.
It was
like educational toys. It was like so basically like this, except it was like generic. It wasn't Sesame Street.
Yeah, and I think that closed, and then I think right after that is when he got hired to run, because he ran the Sesame Street stores, as far as we can tell. Like he's the
guy.
He's the only executive. Actually, from everything we read, we went through dozens of articles. And he was the only person ever mentioned as an employee of Sesame Street stores, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. They didn't. Everybody else they talked to was like a research analyst or like people in the mall or like people who owned the mall.
But he was very active in giving quotes to newspapers.
Oh yeah, that was the other person I talked to. I talked to the historian for the Costa Mesa.
Oh, so mall. The first mall that had a Sesame Street store.
Yeah, the very first mall that had a Sesame Street store, and I literally talked to I did they call him a historian or an archivist?
I think they called him an archivist.
Yeah, I
Who would think a mall would have an archivist?
yeah, it was the weirdest thing. But he literally like took his job seriously too. Like he was literally like looking stuff up for me. He literally found like the floor plans, and he was gonna send them to me, but couldn't for legal reasons.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it was anything that was
It's the
like
South Coast Plaza Mall. It's the mall, by the way. And I guess
Gotcha,
it
yeah.
makes sense for them to have a historian or an archivist because when we looked it up, they had been around. That mall's been around for a long time. They have like a long history in that part of California. And speaking of that, we both messaged the mall. I messaged them when we first started researching it. I messaged them and heard nothing back. I messaged them like in the middle of the business day. I was like, surely I'll hear back from them. I just messaged their, emailed their like info at thenameofthemall.com and heard nothing back. And we're like, well, that must be a bust. And then you messaged them. And then literally within an hour of messaging them, you heard back from them.
I still don't understand that at all. They must have several people check the emails or something, and probably somebody saw yours and was like, what is this shit? And then I just got the right person.
Maybe so. We don't know.
I'm sure they have something better to do than talk to a couple geeks about the Sesame Street store that's not there anymore.
That was kind of a dead end because we thought we were going to get something good from that guy, and we really didn't.
To let everybody know that we really did cover all our bases.
We really tried. We tried so hard on this one. Like, the two of us were literally canvassing every inch of the internet, and we didn't even really find out. We probably had only a third of the information we ended up with before we thought to start checking old newspapers.
That was the most brilliant idea we could have ever hoped to get, because just going on newspaper.com with our lovely free trial, we were able to find almost everything you see in here. Like, this is basically what made the video
because we had like two pictures of the Sesame Street store. We had a vague notion of everything. That like if we hadn't gone through,
I don't even think we knew who Gene Platten was until we started looking at newspapers.
I think we did because so not every newspaper digitizes their newspaper and puts it on their own website. So that's what newspapers.com does, is they take papers that aren't already digitized and digitize them and put them in a big archive. So I think we knew about Gene Platten because the LA Times, which is one of the biggest newspapers in the country, they do have all of their issues digitized on their website. So we were able to find that without going into the newspapers.com archive. So we did know who he was, but we knew nothing else.
Once we got on newspaper.com, though, that's where we found all these like dope pictures of him like rocking sweaters, and he's got all the like the Big Bird phone and shit.
Yep.
Like, they were really pushing this store like heavy. Like, every local paper that had a store like around there, they were like, come to this store, please. And
they definitely did a lot of syndication, as in they got somebody to write an article and they sent it to local newspapers all over the country.
Yeah, a lot of times we ran into the same exact article posted in multiple papers. A
lot of times.
Yeah, a lot of times.
I mean, we were reading papers from like Minnesota and like Wyoming, like just like places that didn't even have the stores. Like, we never found any evidence that there was like a store in Wyoming, but I know we came across a paper in Wyoming like 3 times that had mentioned it. So that's another thing. We would go down a path thinking we were going to find something, and we just kept hitting brick walls because there's no information about it online. We found their trademark. Maybe we can find out who filed for the trademark, but because it's done by a corporation, corporations can hide their info on trademark applications so that you really just see. We found the name of the lawyer who filed the trademark with them.
I forgot about. Didn't you message him?
We messaged the lawyer, never heard back from him. So
I forgot about just how in depth we went.
We probably were.
We really tried.
We probably went a little too far with like
overdoing
messaging people,
it.
but
I don't know what he even could have told us. He could have led us to somebody. I don't know.
Well, I mean, he's a lawyer, so he really couldn't have told us anything, I suppose. But
that's true.
You never know. We tried everything, but really, almost all the information we have comes from newspapers. So thank God for printed news, because we would know nothing. Even the one like high quality picture we have, it was a stock photo that we had to buy.
Yeah, I don't know we're probably the only people who have ever bought this stock photo.
Yeah, I guarantee it. I guess that guy goes on to his account on this stock photo website and was like, wow, somebody made one purchase of my picture ever. Because it was us.
I want to know who the hell took that picture, why they took that picture. It's like the only like high quality image
Yeah.
that exists of this place.
Yeah, and if you're listening and maybe you've already watched the video, it's the picture of the woman with her kid, and is she in a stroller? Here, click over to it. We have it up on the screen here.
She's just holding her kid.
Yeah, she's holding her kid, looking at the Oscar.
The Oscar the Grouch animatronic.
And you got the big bird holding up a sale sign. So that's like really we had like 2 photos of the store, and only one of them was high quality. It's just so strange that all of these malls had these stores and nobody ever took any kind of pictures of them and post them online.
And as far as I can tell, now I almost want to go look at. I'm sure we went on his page or whoever posted the stock photo, because how did he just take one of the outside and he didn't take any inside?
This is like the only picture on his stock photo account. He didn't have any other pictures on his whole account. So
What the hell?
I mean,
how much was this photo?
$50.
Wow. Well, that was the budget. Our whole budget was this one photo.
Yeah, we literally blew our entire budget for this video on a photo. But that's how it goes.
It was worth it. This is a nice, clean photo.
Yep.
Probably the only one that exists.
It might be. And we really thought we were going to find video, and we just couldn't.
It's so different now because like people just film in every store. Like,
oh god, the Sesame Street subreddit and all the Facebook groups, everybody would have photos and pictures up like, oh, look what I got today from this store. But it's just different now.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what this series we're doing is all about, though, is like going into stuff that like wasn't really recorded in history very well. Like, there was no cell phones then, so people just, you go to a store, you don't think like, let me take out my camera and make sure I get a picture of this. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a picture of me at this store somewhere, but I have no idea where, because I remember the Oscar the Grouch, I'm pretty sure. I remember, I don't know, it's all this like weird, like faint memory, you know, like when you're a kid and you...
Because you would have been... What year? Click over to our articles here. So we live near Atlanta, and we're trying to... What year was it? That 93 is when the store opened in Atlanta.
Yeah, and you
weren't even born yet when that opened.
No, I was born in 94, so I was young.
You were really little. And the stores closed in 98, which when you would have been like 3 or 4 years old when they closed.
So I just have like a faint memory of like
weird
a
toddler
Sesame
memories.
Street store. Yeah, like stuff where you think you like dreamed it or something. And I just remember like a bunch of plushes. Like they had a shit ton of plush characters, like weird characters. Like I remember when we were doing more of the research and looking at like the shirts and stuff.
Yeah.
There's like more obscure Sesame Street characters on there, and you were like, "Who is this?" I was like, "Oh, that's Telly. That's Harry Monster." You're like, "What?" I was like, Prairie Dawn. The Amazing Mumford.
Yeah, okay.
It's
You
like,
proved your point. You're a huge Sesame Street nerd. Okay.
It's just funny because like back then they weren't that obscure. They were more like Prairie Dawn is literally like in that intro for Sesame Street in the 90s.
Yeah.
But now I don't even know if she's on there at all. They have like Abby Cadabby and shit like that.
It's on
now.
HBO now, right? So it's...
Yeah, I don't know how much they use some of these like more obscure ones, like the two-headed monsters. I don't remember their name.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's too bad. But yeah, the one thing this store didn't have is Muppet stuff. Apparently, they did not have.
They didn't have the merchandise rights, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was it. And I'm always a big Muppet guy. There was one article we found that mentioned a Muppet stuff store, but that I don't know if that is an actual thing or not, or maybe they meant the Sesame Street store. I don't know. It was this article about the Hanna-Barbera store, and it was all these people talking about this one mall that had a Hanna-Barbera store and a Disney store, and they were like, I don't think you need both. It's like,
can we talk about the lack of foresight in some of these articles that we found?
oh my god, it's so funny to look back
hilarious.
at stuff. It's like people. I don't want to name names, but we do name names in the video. Retail analyst Sarah Stack.
I wonder what happened to old Sarah. We never could find her. We looked her up because we were just curious whatever happened.
I mean, to be fair, I see why she thought the way she did, because she said she thought that this would be bigger than the Disney store.
Because the characters were just as well known or whatever.
And to be fair, they are just as well known. I think they still are just as well known. I feel like you go up to anybody, any age, they're going to know Big Bird and Elmo as much as they know Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
I would think, but
I would assume so.
I don't know. That's maybe if Sesame Street had the rights to sell Muppet stuff too, and then get like even more IPs under their belt, they might have stood a chance. But I don't know. Disney just had too much. Sesame Street's one show. Disney had like every movie that they were pumping out at that time, and
Well, there was also that period, and I want to say it was probably right around the time that this store closed in the late 90s, early 2000s, where toy stores just couldn't stay open.
yeah, that's
So
true.
I think that was just a big part of it. I think there was just a cultural shift at that time where kids weren't buying like toys like that as much. I don't know. Maybe that's...
I don't know. We kind of missed out on some of the like big toy waves, like big crazes, like Ninja Turtles and stuff. I mean, I was big into Ninja Turtles at the time as a kid, but I was kind of like after the fact. It was like renting it from Blockbuster and stuff. I wasn't like alive when it was hot at the time. Or like He-Man. I remember getting like the He-Man and Ninja Turtle toys that were like re-released that didn't look like the classic ones. They were like the new like edgier ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we missed a lot of like the big crazes, stuff like that. I mean, Tickle Me Elmo was hot. I don't know if they sold Tickle Me Elmos at the Sesame Street store or not.
What year? I think Tickle Me Elmo would have been after.
Oh, it was 90s.
Was it?
Yeah,
Surely they were selling it. They had to have.
I would think
But
so, because that was kind of
feel
like the thing.
I just think that Toys R Us was where that craze was really happening. Anyways, people were going to... I just think people didn't think of stores like this as the place to go to get that like hot toy.
Yeah.
Like, this is like the place when you're at the mall already doing something else. You just bring your kids to...
Yeah, it's just like a novelty thing.
Yeah.
Except for there were some malls that had this, a Warner Brothers store, and
A Disney store.
A Disney store. That might have been the South Coast Plaza Mall
Yeah.
that had all of those. And that actually kind of makes sense to have all of those, because like grandma's looking for a birthday gift for her grandkids. Like you literally just go down the row and look at all of those.
Yep.
I'm kind of salty that I never got to go to a Warner Brothers store or a Hanna-Barbera store. I think there's even less info about the Hanna-Barbera store than there was about
It was
this.
open a shorter time for sure.
Yeah, and that's too bad. The Disney store was crazy though. I wish I could have used more footage from that opening.
With the dancing Mickey and Minnie and
Yeah,
all
they
that.
had like that dancing Mickey and Minnie, but then they also had like was it Christy Yamaguchi? Was that the one who was there? It was they had like a few people that came to the opening, like just random people, and they were going all out. They had like a performance from like Bear in the Big Blue House and shit. Like it was no joke. And I don't know, when that's your competition, there's really
I do wonder if
there's no chance.
we like I said, we don't know a lot about the behind the scenes aspects and the business aspects of the store, because other than people who worked there, I don't know where we'd get that information. I mean, really, Gene Platten himself would probably be the only guy who still has that information. But
Yeah.
it makes you wonder if there was just an issue with how much Sesame Street was invested in it, or did Sesame Street, the company, which back then would have been Children's Workshop,
Children's Television Workshop?
Children's Television Workshop.
Yeah.
Now they're the Sesame Street Company, I believe, or something like that, or Sesame Street Workshop, I think is what they're called.
Yeah.
I do wonder if maybe they meddled too much into it. I mean,
Yeah, that's possible. I mean, it sounded like they were very like hands-on with it, and making sure they approved everything. But like, it sounded like everybody was really like took this seriously, and they didn't want to just like slap anything like Sesame Street on anything
Yeah.
and sell it. They said it had to have like entertainment value or education value. They didn't want it to just be like some crap. Like I was reading an article about the Hanna-Barbera store, and they were like interviewing people that were there, and they were like, "Oh, this guy bought a Scooby-Doo whistle." And I was like, "Who goes to the mall and just buys a whistle?" Like,
it was the 90s. Times were different.
that's true, but I don't know. At least the Sesame Street store seemed to cater to like all people as well. Like it wasn't just like kid stuff. It was like
But we also read that
the
article.
watches and stuff.
We also read the article about the mom complaining that her kid would just take off into the store and she would lose track of him
Yeah,
because
that was funny.
and as funny as that is, I think we show that article on screen in the video, so we won't dive too deep into it. That they actually like redesigned their stores so that they were
Yeah, that
like less appealing. Like what?
I don't know if it was less appealing, but it was more open for sure. I mean, that's what they said. I don't know. Was that their downfall?
And I wonder if it's one of those things where maybe kids were too busy like playing with the stuff in the store to really look at the toys and convince their parents to buy it, or
That's true. It sounded like there was. I don't remember a lot of stuff to like play with because I mean I just remember like the plushes and stuff, but
yeah.
just from what I was reading and like what we included in the video, it sounds like there was like just tons of stuff to do. Like I'm sure parents were like, enough is enough after a while with their kid just like
Maybe so.
running around in there. There are also some good quotes from people at the at the mall. I don't know if you remember this one about this lady and her 4.5-year-old son. These newspaper articles crack me up because they're, I guess, trying to get people to go to the store, but it says she spent $66.56 on items in the Sesame Street General Store, including a colorful alarm clock for, quote, the big boy, she said.
Oh, yeah.
So he can wake up on his own when he starts preschool at Waverly Elementary School. Her favorite purchase was a book bag in the shape of a school bus with Big Bird as the driver, but not Travis. Quote, he doesn't like it.
That's like, they even said what school the kid is going to. That's a specific
that's
reporting.
a little screwed up, but also like, who cares? Like, why?
Like,
why are they doing like a profile on this kid named this 4-year-old Travis,
aka the big boy?
I just like that they included that. They were like, the mom clearly said he is the big boy.
I bet that reporter went back to his editor and was like, "Oh, we can cut out the part where she calls him a big boy." And then the editor was like, "We're putting that shit in. Like, this sells papers."
Apparently, he was paying more attention to the Oscar character and waving goodbye to him, and he didn't like. I just like that they included. He didn't like the book bag, and he's like, I mean, I guess the newspaper doesn't care if people go to the store, but I'm sure someone from the store read that and they were like, "Hey, freaking Travis, everyone's a critic."
He's not a big boy at all.
The events that they had at the store, I don't remember.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember them having any at the one.
We
near
never found any announcements for the one near us. So
yeah, but the fact that Roscoe Orman that played Gordon was at one, that's pretty damn cool. The fact that they actually got someone who was on Sesame Street.
But the question is, did people actually go? I wonder.
Yeah, well, I read the ad, I think, said he was going to be there at 2 separate times and he would be there for an hour, like just an hour. Yeah. So I don't know if it was one of those things where people are like lined up around the mall like they're about to go see Tiffany or something.
I mean, what did Roscoe Orman have going on at the time that he...
Sesame Street, that's it.
Yeah.
I think...
Is he still alive?
I think so. I don't know if he's still on Sesame Street. A lot of those guys still are on Sesame Street. You see him at the like Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade every year, and you're like, damn, he was on Sesame Street when I was a kid. He's still doing it.
Yeah.
But good for them. I mean, they're making money. Like Carol Spinney that did Big Bird and Oscar just retired.
Yep, I saw that.
This past year.
A lot of the a lot of people who do the voices and the puppeteering are starting to leave as well. So it's like a whole new group coming in.
Yeah, but I don't remember who all. I mean, Carol Spinney obviously would have been part of it at this point when the stores were opening, but obviously this is post Jim Henson. Yeah. So I don't know. It's interesting. It makes you wonder, like, if a store concept had happened when he was alive, like, would it have been different, or would he have like gone for it at all? Like,
yeah.
Part of me thinks maybe he wouldn't because it's a little too commercial, but. I know. They had Sesame Street merchandise before then. I think if it was handled in like a graceful way, which I would say it was, that he would probably be down for it. But who's to say? But there's some alternate timeline where we get a store in the mall that's still open today with Muppets and Sesame Street.
There's, like I said, we have actually. I mean, I know we made a whole video, but we really do have such. Just a lack of information about this place. Like, really, after about 96, like, all information just dries up.
All of the reporting was more like, this store is opening now. Like, get over here. It's so exciting. But then, I don't know, nobody makes an article about a store closing unless it's like an institution, and I guess this just
didn't
quietly
hit that. Yeah.
disappeared, and it wasn't really anything to it. I do wonder what exactly happened, but
Well, if anybody still is around who can get us in contact with Gene Platt, we'd love to talk to him because I'm sure he knows. Obviously, I mean,
or
he
anybody
ran it.
who like worked at one of these stores who might have more info and isn't just like
I mean, usually employees like that aren't going to know much. So
if they were a manager of a store, maybe, but who knows? But
we don't.
yeah,
But it was. I mean, this was interesting because, like we said, this was the first one we worked on it really pretty much solidly together. And God, how long did we work on the research for this? I mean, a few months.
Yeah, definitely.
And obviously, we've kind of streamlined the process since then. But it was.
It's just so wild that something that was like such a big deal when it opened, like basically how everybody has like a streaming service now. You know how everyone's like fighting to have their own streaming service. It was like everybody was fighting to have their own character-based retail store. Like everybody was like, get our characters in the freaking mall right now, and it was like a race to the top. But
Yep.
I don't know. What can you do? Some went better than others. I think this definitely did better than some stores, probably. Yeah. I mean, the fact that we couldn't find anything about the others. But to be fair, it's probably hard to type in Hanna-Barbera store and find anything about it. But
I mean, I'm happy with everything that we found, but this one definitely left us wanting more, and maybe there's a chance that we could revisit it in the future if something ever comes up. But
if there's any more out there. But yeah, it's a shame it doesn't exist anymore though, because I always remember liking it as a kid.
Oh, I know you'd still be in there once a week if it was open. I know you.
Oh, for sure. And
because they'd be carrying Sesame Street Pops.
Oh, they definitely would. Funko has made some pretty good Sesame Street Pops, actually, and I can already imagine they would have like Sesame Street General Store exclusives and that kind of thing.
Yep.
But now you can buy all the Sesame Street stuff on eBay. There's
including an Oscar the Grouch occasionally pops up on there, like the actual Oscar the Grouch animatronic.
Yeah, there was an actual animatronic when we first started researching. I don't see it on here anymore, but I don't remember how much it was, but that thing has to be huge and heavy. I don't know. I want to know how some of these people ended up with one. There's that one video we used. If you go and watch the full thing, he really like looks inside it and shows off the mechanics and stuff. And I do wonder the poor like employees who had to like do maintenance on that thing, because I'm sure kids were just like smacking it and hugging it and whatever else. I know the guy I talked to who's a doctor now, that guy said he didn't remember there's like popping out of the trash can. He just like sat there.
So he's broken basically and just talked.
There were probably a lot like that. But yeah, how often do you see animatronics in the mall just like hanging out?
Like I said, it was a very different time. I just don't see like this kind of thing. Just they wouldn't do this kind of thing anymore. Like businesses don't take this kind of like.
Yeah, what's the last movie or thing like that to have its own store exclusively for that?
Like I said, the only one I've ever remembered that I've ever seen was Disney stores. So I mean, like if you go to like a park that is. Because, like, we have Six Flags near us, and don't they have Hanna-Barbera characters? And you can go and buy it.
Yeah, they have stuff like that. And then we also have the CNN Center down here, and they have a CNN store, and they have a Cartoon Network store. Yeah. But that's, like, exclusively at the CNN Center in Atlanta. I don't think that's anywhere else.
But, no, there's been nothing like that. I mean...
Yeah, now the only, like, Sesame Street store you can go to is, like, at SeaWorld, I think, or Busch Gardens or both, something like that.
The thing that makes sense... just from a business standpoint these days, just put it in Walmart and Target. Like that's where people are going anyways.
Well, now I think like what you have now is like Think Geek, and the mall is probably like the closest thing to.
Honestly, malls are kind of a dying thing anyways in a lot of places in America.
That's
so
true.
It's just
I don't know, around Christmas time they're still packed. It's crazy.
That's true.
But
I just think if you can limit the amount of like you don't want somebody to have to make a separate trip to go to your store these days. Like they don't.
Yeah.
Like so, you either put it in a mall or you just put your product in a big, well-established store like Walmart. And I think that's why we don't see this anymore.
Even if this store had lasted like a little bit longer, it still wouldn't be around now, or it would be closing now. Like if Toys R Us can't make it, then this definitely couldn't have.
Especially now, because I don't think Sesame Street is as because it's on HBO especially. I just don't think it's as ubiquitous for small children anymore.
I mean, you still see Sesame Street in the news sometimes when it's just like little things, like maybe they'll have like a video that goes viral, or they'll I know I heard when they added like the character who has autism, there's like a little girl puppet on there who has autism, and that's when you'll like see them in the news and stuff, and like the Macy's parade every year, but you don't really, I mean, we're also not toddlers, so we don't watch it that often.
Yeah,
so.
I'm not checking my news daily for Sesame Street announcements or anything.
They are doing some cool like merchandising stuff still. They've Sesame Street and Muppets both have gotten into like the hype beast stuff now.
Oh yeah.
Like Kaws, Kaws. If I'm mispronouncing that, my brother's gonna be embarrassed. My brother's a real like hype beast. He got me one of those sweatshirts for Christmas, and I think like Pharrell used to wear those, and it's like that little character with like the X's for eyes, and they came out with all these sweatshirts and shirts and stuff that have Sesame Street characters with the X's for eyes. They low key kind of look dead, but they also came out with plushes with the X's in the eyes, and that's pretty cool. So,
and that's another reason why it wouldn't be around is online.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason to open a brick and mortar store these days, really, unless you have a specific type of product. But for this kind of thing, just put it online. That's the best way.
I think if more people knew about this, some of that Sesame Street General Store, like actual merch from back in the day, would be going for a lot with the hype beast crowd. Like,
I know.
There's a bomber jacket on eBay right now that's dope, like with denim and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's really the only thing I've seen. I mean, you still see like Sesame Street toys around, but there hasn't really been like a Tickle Me Elmo craze or anything.
Yep.
But
it's, like I said, it's just different. And
I think, I mean, that just happens when something becomes a staple. It's hard to like get people excited about it again. It's one of those things it's always been around, and people just assume that it always will. So they're not like looking for it, you know, like you see Big Bird in a store and you're just like, oh.
And I wonder if that's part of why it's just so hard to find information about it online.
Yeah, because it's just one of those things. Like if you see Big Bird in a store, you see like Snoopy or Mickey Mouse or whatever, you're like, well, yeah, of course they're gonna be there. Like they're everywhere.
Well, like we said, if anybody has any information that we didn't cover in the video or this podcast, we'd love to hear. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah.
You know, hit us up on any of our social media, because
if Gene Platten is your grandpa, please tell him that we want to talk to him.
Yeah, if you're a little Platten, we'd love to hear. We just, you know, like I said, this was the first, so this one's kind of near and dear to our hearts, and we'd love to hear more about it if you guys know anything. So feel free to let us know, or if you have any merch, that'd be awesome. We'd love to see pictures of it too.
Oh yeah, definitely tweet us some pictures of merch at Viewist Prod, short for Viewist Productions, because that is too long for Twitter. But
so you can send it to us on Twitter or tag us on Instagram. Anything.
Yeah, definitely, because I thought I had more merch from this place, but I really only had the shirt. I remember getting some figures that had like numbers with them, and they had like Grover and the Count and all that. I literally like can remember them in my head, but I couldn't find them.
There's really not much left out there. So I think a lot of people, you know, either got trashed as things happen, that happens as you get older, or people still use it, or because there's not that many things listed on eBay is what I'm trying to say. Right
now there really isn't. There was a sign on there for a while, like another one of those general store signs, but right now I'm only seeing like some mugs, one of the bags for $3 or best offer.
Yep.
Some watches. That's really it. But yeah, they really did have some cool stuff. It wasn't just like cheesy shirts and stuff. It was like actually pretty cool.
Yep, it just happened to be one of those things that was basically destined to fail. There was no other way that was going, really. So
yeah, it's true. But you can still go to the Disney store.
Yep.
I mean, I guess it's better than the alternative. Disney could have bought Sesame Street.
That's true.
And we've seen what they've done with the Muppets. It's like they regret purchasing them the way they treat them. But well, that's about it.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, if you have any information or want to talk to us about it anymore, feel free to find us on any of our social medias.
Yeah, hit me up.
We're on Instagram, Twitter. You can find Wes and I both on both of those platforms as well. We loved reading about all this. It was very interesting. We'd love to hear more about it. So.
And I love talking about Sesame Street with anybody who wants to talk about it. So
yep.
Definitely hit us up if you have any info, any pictures, and tune in for the next episode of
Newstalgia.
Yeah.
Featuring epics. That's a little sneak peek for anybody who's
I was
listened
about
to the
to
end.
say give a little teaser. That's the one Cody picked for the next one, and it's pretty wild as well.
Yeah, so be looking out for that soon on YouTube. So follow us there if you haven't already.
And then there will also be a podcast, so subscribe to those or keep an eye out, and we'll catch you guys next time.